Hi, Feral Big Dog here, and I'd like to begin this thought with the words of the late Gene Roddenberry's work, Star Trek: The Next Generation. Now, it's in the episode Drumhead that I think you need to really pay attention to on these words, and I'm going to recite them for you. With the first link, the chain is forged. The first speech censored. The first thought forbidden. The first freedom denied. Chains us all irrevocably. These words should sit in your mind, and I want you to really think about them. And think about how they apply to the message for today, for this video. And let it continue in your everyday life. We have links being forged every day that bind us more and more. Started with the separation of church and state. And yes, this is coming from someone who's lost faith. My faith is dead. It's never coming back. But it doesn't mean that I completely abandon morality. On separation of church and state, the Pledge of Allegiance was taken out of schools, and so was prayer. Yet, for some reason, Muslims are allowed to have their prayer sessions. Isn't that a little fishy? If you're not going to allow those of the Judeo-Christian belief to pray, you have no business letting those of Muslim belief pray. If you're going to allow one, you've got to allow the other. It's called being fair. And we've taken out the pledge, as I've said we've done. That was a big disgrace. And I'm going to be annotating a link to Red Skelton's Pledge of Allegiance talk. It's not too long. It starts off a little funny, but it's very serious and very important. It's so important that he acts very serious about it. And I think you should take the time and watch it. I'm going to pause this if I can. If I can't, then you pause it. Or you know what, I'll put it in the more info section underneath the video. I'll put it in both places. We've taken those words out. And what happened with the prayer and the pledge being taken out? Morality in schools has gone down, bullying has increased. And we've had school shootings, which I think is a direct result. Look at Columbine. If we had left those in place, I don't think Columbine would have happened. I don't think a lot of the school shootings would have happened. A lot of them were just copycats of Columbine in one form or another. We've had the Sandy Hook massacre, which some believe is completely fake. I think there were people killed, and it's a tragic thing. I do think there is some conspiracy there, but not in people pretending to be dead. That's disrespectful. But it's all a link, or it could be a series of links to take guns away. The New York SAFE Act is the result of it. It should be the Unsafe Act by an unpatriotic governor. It should be tossed on his rear. And he wants you to turn in all your long guns to store at a depot and register all your guns. Registration, which has been illegal since 1934 under the National Firearms Act. Illegal. These are links, and they're binding us. When the registration period ends in New York, it's going to bind a lot of New Yorkers. Now, I can't tell you New Yorkers not to turn in anything, not to register anything. That's a decision for you to make. But I will ask this of any New Yorkers who see this. What would the Founding Fathers think? What would the soldiers who gave their lives so that we can have a free nation a couple hundred years ago think? What would they do? What what would the Revolutionary soldiers do? The Minutemen, the people who fought and died to give us this nation. What would George Washington do? What did they do? Take a page from history, or be condemned to repeat it. So those are a couple links. With the separation of church and state, guns being registered, and you know what's next? Something Cuomo even mentioned himself, the idea of confiscation. What happens in countries that have had registration? Confiscation. Hitler did confiscation. I believe Stalin did confiscation. What's the first step to confiscating guns? Know where they're at. Know where they're at by registration. It does not make things one bit safer. For that matter, demonizing a gun because of its looks, it's useless. What they call the assault rifles, just semi-automatic rifles. It doesn't matter how they look, but demonizing them because, ooh, they look scary. Give me a break. It's no different than any other rifle, but you want to demonize it. Where's the common sense in this? The types that do this, the mainstream media, the liberal media, more exactly, they don't want you having guns. Chris Matthews even said in his own words, I want people disarmed. Why? Since when is me having a gun hurting Chris Matthews? Or you? Or anyone else up there having a gun hurting somebody? If you're a responsible gun owner, as much as I hate guns, if you like guns, you're responsible, by all means, please, have guns. Make sure you're experienced with them, practice with them, be responsible with them, especially if you have to pull the trigger. But by all means, have them. Firearms are the teeth of liberty. You know what all these links lead up to? Leading up to the pulling of teeth. Bringing in socialism, communism, the opposite of freedom. And I hear people saying disgustingly that socialism or communism isn't that bad. See, that's under the concept of, or for lack of the right term, under the concept of each person according to their needs. And you might be looking at a shiny side of that apple. But turn it around. Cut it up and look inside. It's full of worms. Who are you to decide my needs? Maybe I decide I need a gun. We have varmints out here. I've heard people walking around at night. Who are you to say that I don't need a gun? Maybe I decide I need a nice juicy steak. Who are you to say I don't need it? Who am I to say you don't need it? Who's the government to say you don't need it? So maybe I decide I need a new TV. Maybe my old one burns out and it's non-repairable. Who's any politician to say, well, you don't need this or that? Now, see, the concept of freedom is I can make the choices for me, not you. Who's to say you don't need the produce you grow in your garden? Under socialism and communism, you can't have a garden. If you do, you've got to turn everything over to some distribution center or whatever. You can't have it for you. Pol Pot did that. That's how it works. can't have reserves of anything. You don't really own anything unless maybe it's your pants. The very personal things. Your underwear. You might be able to own that. Your home, your TV, no. Your car, no. You don't own it. Everything's property of the state. People say it's not that bad. Under freedom, capitalism, yeah, you have a small amount taken out of your check, sometimes too big of an amount, but still not the entire amount. Your check is this much, you may have this much to pay in taxes. That's for emergency services and such. But the rest of what you get, yours. You can own your own home. Now, this is not my home. This is my mother and stepfather's home. I don't have my own. But I've helped to build this. But under capitalism, if I can get to where I can hold a job, I can have my own home, my own transportation. Own it myself. As opposed to the state saying, well, you're assigned to this place, and then maybe being able to put someone else there you don't want. That's what it's all leading to. Another link to that is Small Arms Treaty, where basically the UN wants to have control over your gun rights, my gun rights. They want to say, well, you can't have this or that, or you can't have this much ammo. There are nations that do that. England, New Zealand, Australia, Canada. And I'm severely tempted to say a cuss word, but instead I'll say it's bull crap. Nations that do that fear their people and have taken away their ability to stand up to the government with heavy restrictions. In New Zealand and Australia, you can't say you want a gun for defense. You can't even have a gun in the same room as your ammo. Your gun has to be locked in a safe, your ammo in another room. You've got to have your firing pins taken out. And if you take a gun somewhere, straight there and back. You can't stop at a drive-thru for a cheeseburger. No, that's illegal. You've got to go straight there and back. You can't carry a gun on your hip. In America, we still can, because we are the land of the free. It's ridiculous. We have heavy registration, licensing. In this country, you don't need that. Before all these troubles started, way back in the 50s and 60s, kids could take guns to school. People didn't get hurt. I think there was one incident that I remember hearing about. Someone in a clock tower. But you know who stopped that one? It wasn't the police. It was an armed citizen. If somebody knows the name of that massacre, by all means, let me know, please. But gun-free zones, you don't have that. You have criminals with open season. But back to 50 years ago, 50, 60 years ago, people could take guns to school. They hunted on the way home. They had gun clubs. Kids could have shotguns and rifles in their truck hanging on the rack. Can't have that now. You know what the problem is? It's not guns. I hate guns. I-H-A-T-E, hate guns. But I want you to have them if you feel you need them, or if you like them, and you're responsible enough to have them. The problem is we've given authority over discipline to the nanny state, which is another link. We've let the nanny state tell us, oh no, you can't spank your kids. It'll scar them. It's abusive. No. I know what abuse is. My father abused me, both my sisters, and probably my mother, only I don't know what all he did to my mother. But spanking and abuse, different. It's actually abusive not to spank your kids when they need it. That's my belief. You're entitled to yours, but I'm also entitled to mine. See, when my mother was growing up, and when my papa was growing up, they had a great deal of discipline. If you got in trouble at school, you got punished at school. Jerked up out of your chair, and you got a few licks from the teacher. And you knew you were going to get more at home. So you know what happened? You toed the line. You were afraid to step out of line, and it built character. And you didn't have all these video games to occupy your time. You didn't have the movie Bully, not the documentary, but the movie. You didn't have all these violent video games. And I love to play video games. I play Metal Gear Solid, Infamous, at least 2 Resident Evil games, and demoing a 3rd. I like violent video games, but I keep morality in mind. My mother instilled violence, not being good, in mind. She taught me violence is not good. That's what I meant by instilling that. Violence is never the 100% answer. It can be a tool if you need it. If someone's throwing punches at you, throwing haymakers, trying to beat the tar out of you, it is a tool for defense if you need to. Block, counter, block, counter. It's something you use if you need to, but not a go-to response. And see, we used discipline when needed. So we were taught morality. Something a lot of kids don't get because parents just don't care to give it, or they don't take the time to give it, or they say, well, I have good kids. But do you really know your kids? I'll be annotating a link, if I can find it, to a bully who was killed by his victim in Florida. Tormented daily. And the victim was so afraid that he brought a knife to school and ended up needing to use it because his bully and his gang was beating the tar out of this victim on the ground, and he had no recourse. So he pulled the knife and started stabbing the bully in the chest. Did the mother and father really know their son, the wrestling athlete? No, they didn't know him at all. Did Nancy Lanza know her son Adam? Obviously not, even though she was his mother and knew he was dangerous. We have lost responsibility, discipline in ourselves. So we're not teaching it to our kids. That's the problem. And that's a link. We've abdicated that authority to the nanny state, the government, to discipline our kids. When it should be you. You're letting the TV, or, excuse my language, the boob tube be the babysitter. No, don't do that. When your kids watch a show, you should know what they're watching. Watch it with them. And when something comes up, a shooting, anything involving anything controversial or something that's worth talking about, for example, in the TV show The Famous Jackson, made by Disney, there's an episode about shooting and guns. That's a talking point. And I believe that the writers intended talking points to be put in these things so that parents will, oh, here's some common sense, somebody stop me, talk with their kids. See how they feel about things. Get to know their kids. Something else parents should do that not all do, sit down and have family meals. My sister has family meals with her kids every day. You know what? those kids have straight A's. That's dang impressive. I can never get straight A's at all. Her son goes out hunting whenever he wants. Has free access to the shotguns, the rifles. He decides he wants a squirrel or a rabbit. Goes out and gets it. But you know what? She took the time to know him. Her and her husband know their sons completely because they take the time to. The responsibility, the discipline. They have that. And they instill that in them. Like a lot of people should. They go to church every Sunday. And growing up, they made sure to teach values. It's not the nanny state's responsibility. It's not the community's responsibility. It does take a community to raise a child, but only in a kind of a supportive, maybe you need babysitting kind of role. In a role of, you see this kid doing something, you tell their parents. Or you see parents abusing this kid, then you step in and you do something. But other than that, it is you, the parent, that is supposed to raise your kids, not anybody else. And if you're not willing to take the responsibility, and you see these, do this. You see this, keep it on. Don't make babies. It's called discipline, people. You should know yourself and know whether or not you're fit to raise kids. We don't have that these days. We decide, well, I can, therefore I want to, therefore I will. And that's a link we've created for ourselves. It's bound us. Another link that's just come to mind. People being corporate entities instead of people. When Walmart and Kroger's fired me, they didn't stop to think as people. They were being corporate entities. I was doing my job and doing it right. At Kroger's, I was doing what the law said. In the store, Mid-South 345, I talked about it in one of my earlier videos. I encourage you to take a look. They didn't want to know about safety violations. But what could I do? The law said you had to tell your managers. So I did. And they fired me. So it's the corporate way of thinking. They're not stopping and thinking, what is it that the Bible, a book I no longer believe in anymore, says I should do? What does morality say I should do? No, they say, what's best for the company? You know, if the company makes enough money already, you can afford to be a little bit human. You can afford to at least take the time and tell someone there are certain things that are called unwritten rules. These are the rules. But no, it's easier for them to just be corporate shills, corporate robots, instead of actually having to stop and think like a human being. And that's a disgrace. That's a chain link. It's always better to stop and be a human being. Stop and ask yourself, what's the right thing to do? But no, we don't do that. We need people that will stand up to management, to this level and that level and all these other levels, and say that word, no. I will be a human, not a cog in the machine. Not go along with something just because I'm told to. But no, we don't have that. If we did have that, we would have less people on disability. I could actually be holding a job because people would be human and not just corporate robots. Not need a government agency to back someone up. But no, we don't have that. We have corporate robots. That's the link. a link to the chain that binds us and weighs us down underwater. And that's part of what's killing this country. Leads to lots of people being on unemployment, disability. That's money, your tax dollars are going to funds that frankly shouldn't be needed. We have jobs going overseas, that's a link. Look for the label Made in America. You know these shirts at Walmart that say Faded Glory, has a cutout of the United States and the flag? Look where it's made. Mexico, Honduras, Thailand, Pakistan. Have a look. What was that country that was hiding bin Laden? Oh yeah, Pakistan. It may cost a little more to buy American, but you're investing in America when you do that, and that's patriotic, and that cuts a link. That cuts a link that binds us all and lets us have some elbow room, some freedom. So let's start cutting links. Let's look for and buy American at every possible chance. It may cost a little more, but it's worth it. Let's oust dictators like Bloomberg. And let's face it, Bloomberg and Cuomo, they are dictators. They are wannabe dictators. Look at the nonsense that Bloomberg installed. You can't buy large soft drinks. Some nonsense about tobacco. He wants to micromanage your life, tell you what you can do. It took a court to shut that down. Called it arbitrary and capricious. Those are big words. Governor Cuomo, same thing with his nonsense gun laws. And Bloomberg wanting to spend up to $1 billion to buy legislation that Bloomberg agrees with. And frankly, he has no business getting involved in any other state's politics when he can't even solve crime in his own area. Bloomberg, you unpatriotic, excuse my language, America, jackass. Fix your own problems. Get crime under control in your own city and look at what places like Kennesaw, Georgia is doing that actually reduces crime. And then maybe you might have a say in what someplace else does. Maybe. Don't hold your breath on that. On second thought, please hold your breath for eternity, if you would. Please. I say that on behalf of America. But you need to oust that dictator. The dictator is Bloomberg, Cuomo, unpatriotic senators like Feinstein, Pelosi, Reid. Get more constitutional ones in. The good ones that want to help cut the links and help free us are Greg Ball, Senator Cruz, I think Ted Cruz, Senators Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell. These are good ones, and we need more like that. We need to outright fire, not wait till the next election, but immediately fire the President and Vice President, the Secretary of State. All three of them. Obama, bin Laden, lying Joe Biden, and that hack Clinton all need to go. Get some real Americans in place, ones that firmly believe in the sanctity of the Second Amendment and the sacred document that America was built on, the Constitution of the United States. Then we start cutting these links, downsizing the government, letting people be humans. One thing that government should be required to do is to make corporate entities be more human. and there is an office that might do that. I'm not sure about it. Supposed to do something with the Americans with Disabilities Act. That's something I want to try to make some use of, so I can try to hold a job, but it shouldn't come to that. But once they get that fixed, we'll have a link cut. We need to cut the links, people. And it's not a chain we can just cut in one area and have it all unravel. No. We need to cut them link by link by link by link. I've said some of the links, there are a great deal others. Let's get the bolt cutters and start cutting away. Do you agree with me? Do you have something to say? Let me know in the messages area. Feel free to subscribe if you wish, or don't if you don't want to. It's your choice. I will say one thing. If you're going to try to promote socialism or communism, try to claim that it's not that bad, don't waste your time. I will remove that comment. Other than that, got something to say, let me know. I'm Feral Big Dog. Y'all have a nice day now. One moment, folks. Before you go, after this video, do me a favor, check out my next video. I'll post a link to it right here. Check it out. It's about more links that are thinking us. Y'all have a nice day now.